Most of us have automobiles. In today's world, it's almost a necessity. As populations continue to grow, cities expand outward, and getting anywhere like work, school, or even a restaurant is a task not well suited to legs or even bicycles. As we already know, cars and trucks take fuel, often in the form of gasoline or diesel. But how many times have you thought about where it comes from? Having worked in the oil and gas industry for a little over 5 years now, I've had the opportunity to develop a good understanding of the processes that it takes to get oil out of the ground and into your car. Most of us are aware that gas and diesel begin their lives as crude oil, which is a complex mixture of hundreds of thousands of different molecules trapped underneath the earth. But how does that turn into useful products like lubricants, petrochemicals, or automotive fuels? Automotive fuels endure a tremendous journey, from deep within the earth, out through a well, down a pipeline to a refinery, then out to the sales rack to distributors, just to make it into your tank. The process begins with the exploration and production of crude oil. The University of Colorado Law School provides the following information. It's first located using surveys, such as gravity, magnetic, and seismic surveys, and the results of those are interpreted by petroleum engineers, who then try to figure out whether there's a viable reservoir. Exploratory wells are then drilled to determine the viability of a field, and once viability has been established, production can begin. Wells are drilled to extract the crude oil from the ground, and the depth varies wildly depending on geography and geology. A variety of techniques have been developed to enhance the recovery from these wells. Directional and complex path drilling involves drilling at various angles, inclines, paths, and directions to maximize the well's exposure to formation. These are just a couple of examples of the interesting different drill paths that they can take with these intricate tools now. And this can turn an unprofitable field into a very profitable one, very easily. Multilateral drilling involves making various offshoots from the main well at different depths to tap multiple reservoirs at one time. Extended reach drilling allows drillers to reach reservoirs 5 or more miles away, which reduces the impact on the surface, and it allows easier access to difficult formations. Like you can see here, the onshore well is able to tap the reservoir that's located underneath the surface of the ocean, which would have traditionally taken an offshore platform. Finally, there's hydraulic fracturing. The EPA website explains that a mixture of fluid, proppants, and other chemical additives, and the proppants can include sand or tiny ceramic pellets, are pumped into the wellbore, where it creates and then stabilizes tiny fissures and fractures inside the formation to increase productivity. This process is controversial for its alleged impacts on the environment. That's another speech. Whichever processes are used, crude oil should come up from the ground through the wellhead. After producing the crude oil, it still remains largely useless. It must be transported to other facilities that will turn it into our desired products. The U.S. Energy Information Administration highlights the many different ways that crude oil can reach refiners. Pipelines are an efficient way to transport large quantities of crude oil a long distance. They're often low maintenance and cost effective, and the EIA indicates that pipelines accounted for 3.19 billion barrels of oil transported to refiners in 2013, which is 56%. Tankers and barges are often the only viable way to import crude oil or to get crude oil to refineries from faraway countries like those in the Middle East and South America. In 2013, tankers and barges transported 2.29 billion barrels of oil to refineries, which is 40.1% of deliveries. Finally, rail cars and trucks are becoming a more feasible option for certain fields, like the Bakken Shale up in North Dakota. 2013 saw 232 million barrels of oil transported with that method, which is just 4% of deliveries, but like I said, that number has been increasing lately. Refiners use a variety of processes to transform crude oil into a variety of saleable products. The process begins with distillation, which is just the separation of molecules by their boiling point differences. In the past, this was the only step, but today these initial fractions undergo other processes through other units that transform them by improving their quality, reducing the emissions, and enhancing refinery profitability. Catalytic cracking units use a silica alumina or zeolite catalyst to split large molecules into smaller ones, which are much more useful. This creates valuable gasoline and diesel fractions out of a largely useless fraction known as gas oil. Carmagen, an engineering firm, claims that catalytic cracking units have always been and likely will remain some of the most profitable units in a modern refinery. Catalytic reforming units use a catalyst like Honeywell's UOP R500 to rearrange molecules in gasoline fractions into high-octane, lead-free gasoline, which is much better for the environment. These catalysts contain platinum and rhenium on a ceramic spherical substrate, which increases their surface area for maximum reaction and conversion. Additionally, the process frees up hydrogen gas, which is a valuable input for further processes down the line, like desulfurization. Alkylation and polymerization units operate similarly, and here we can see an example reaction. They combine the smallest molecules in the fractions together, using hydrofluoric acid often as a catalyst to create a high-octane gasoline called alkylate or polygas. Finally, the diesel and the gasoline products must then be desulfurized to meet new EPA sulfur standards. According to their website, the EPA introduced new sulfur standards for diesel fuel between 2006 and 2010 that required the sulfur content to be less than 15 parts per million. They followed up by requiring refiners to drop the sulfur content of gasolines to less than 30 for a rolling yearly average, less than 80 for individual batches, and there are plans to reduce that limit even further to under 10 parts per million. These standards require new units to remove the sulfur from the fuels. They use a variety of catalysts combined with hydrogen to remove the free sulfur and the sulfur-containing compounds from the gasoline and diesel. These units are very expensive to build and they're very expensive to run, which resulted in a lot of the price increases that we saw, especially in diesel fuel between 2006 and 2010, when it basically doubled in price within a couple weeks. Though this isn't an exhaustive list, it does cover the major processes that modern domestic refineries use to produce fuels. After production, refiners market the fuels to various distributors. These distributors then either own and operate their own filling stations or then sell it to other filling stations within the immediate region. And this is finally where you, the consumer, are supplied with gasoline or diesel at the pump. As we've seen, it takes a large effort to remove oil from the ground, get it to a refinery, fractionate it, transform it, sell it to distributors, and then finally sell it to you. Though production companies, refiners, and distributors work to make the process more efficient, the process likely won't change much into the future unless significant technological breakthroughs occur. But at least now you'll be able to appreciate all of the effort that goes into those pricey gallons of fuel that allow you to work, learn, and play.